Everybody clap your hands right here. We will fight and we will win. Come on, SOV, say. We will fight and we will win. And we will win. We speak victory. We speak victory to every trial we're in. We are overcomers. We are overcomers. By the blood of the Lamb. By the blood of the Lamb. No longer defeated. No longer defeated. But we're winners now. We're winners.
You gonna look different when they see you next time. You gonna look different. And do you know why you gonna look different? Because you learn how to fill your tank up. You came to greater joy, and you began to lift up holy hands. And when you lift up your hands, you are looking up to the gas tank. Y'all don't need no gas. I've been empty all week long. Pain in my body all week long. But I feel my help. I feel my help coming on. Can I get a witness in here? Somebody ought to lift him up. Because he's been good. And he's been good. And he's been good. Yeah! Hallelujah. Tell your neighbor I've been on E all week. But I'm beginning to feel better. I'm beginning to feel a little better. I'm beginning to feel a little better. I might not go out with you. Y'all don't want to have church over here. I'm beginning to feel a little better.
No matter what the circumstance, we always win.
Food on my table. Clothes on my back. I want to say thank you. I wish I had 2 or 3 more witnesses in the house. Baby, I'm talking right. Come on, somebody. Held back the hands of the enemy. I want to say thank you. Amen. Look at somebody and tell them that's the kind of God you serve. That's the kind of God you serve. Amen. Y'all sit if you can. That's the kind of God you serve. Didn't have to do it. Should have been dead. Would have been dead. Could have been dead. But he kept me alive. That's enough to give him praise. Amen. Tell somebody next to you, you need to say thank you on this road. You just, you need to say thank you on this road. After all we've been through, after all we've been through, you need to say thank you. Hallelujah. If you got feet, you ought to pick them up and put them down. If you got fingers, you ought to tap them and tap them in the head of the devil.
Welcome to the Memoir of Greater Joy, a 4-part docuseries, which over the month of August, we will reflect on the beginnings, the present, and the future of Greater Joy. Tune in now as we reflect.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Change me, oh God.
Dad, you remember we're back on the grounds where ministry really began to blossom for you. I remember being with you, and we came to this spot to see a building. Now it's been many years later, but this building has been torn down. We came here, and Dr. Harold Cobb had a building here, and you began, and you and I remember us walking to this big building. We thought it was huge building, but come to find out that really wasn't that large when it came down to the ministry that was able to be accomplished under your leadership. You remember those times?
Very well. I remember how we got started here and how you were part of all of the ministries that helped to get started, and from everything, I think everything under the sun that could be in the church, you were in charge of it.
Well, involved or something, man.
Yeah.
We had a great time. Just so much I learned watching you go from the ground up with a ministry that gets founded, and then to see it blossom. And here we are some almost 30 years later, and wow, you are. I preached my initial sermon right on these grounds here, 1993, and man, I'm just still grateful about that. I was thinking about the day I came and told you that I had been called to preach, and you told me you ain't been called to preach. Go back and pray about it.
Recognizes me, said go pray about it. When he came in, he said, I think that God has called me.
Absolutely.
Free. And I said nothing, and I just sit there, and he looked like he got confused because I didn't say anything. And he went out, and about 2 weeks later he came in, he said, Daddy, I need to sit down and talk to you. I said, okay, come on in, man. And he sat down and he said, Daddy, I came in the other day and telling you that God had called me to preach. I said, no, son, that's not what you said. You said you think God has called you to preach. If you just think he called you to preach, you need to go back and talk to God about what you said.
I can feel that today, brother. I can feel that 30 years later. I can feel that today. I understand now.
He said, Daddy, no, God has called me to preach. I said, let's talk.
Right.
And from that moment, we started developing him doing his initial service. And I guess you felt kind of strange that you had to come in and preach to me before you preached to the congregation.
Well, you know what really comes to remembrance for me is just the time that you made us go through to make sure. And I didn't understand the roughness of that day. I didn't understand the roughness of when I got ordained. I didn't understand. I'll tell this story quickly. I walked in to be ordained, and there's a group of preachers there, and I walk in there and said, get that smile off your face. Ain't nobody in here, no friend of yours. And I'm looking at him like, I mean, is this guy for real? And what I realized later was, above everything, he wanted me to be ready. He wanted me to be prepared. He knew what this walk was going to be like. And man, I am so appreciative. Here I am, a little better than almost 30 years doing this since that time. And man, I am so grateful for just those things. And I transfer that same stuff, because I'm tough on these guys. That same stuff to say, man, you got to know what this walk is about. It's not, we were just talking earlier, it's not creams and and Candy. It's a tough walk.
Yeah, and the thing that I think that you gotta understand more than anything, and I know that you got it down in your heart, is that it's not about you, it's about the people.
Right.
God didn't call you for you, he called you for the people that he sent you to.
That relationship.
And that is so very, very important.
Yeah.
And I see that working in you very, very good everywhere that you've gone. And it's very, very important.
Well, I'm excited about it, man. It's been a lot of years since we've been here. This place has changed tremendously. The building has been demolished. These are the hallowed grounds where we began. Where I began, actually, Daddy began the ministry with a pastor named Pastor Haynes at Carry You Home Funeral Home. I'll never forget that. The name of the funeral home today is Haynes Funeral Home, but we went there and started from there to here, and God has been gracious and kept us through it all.
Our first stop was actually a florist shop.
Yeah, it was Kay's Floor Shop. Was it Kay's? Not Kay's. It was
Get the girl's name.
Oh my goodness.
She was a member.
Yeah, she was a member of the church, and I can't. Her name's over off of
Inside the restaurant.
Right. I remember. I can't think of her name right now, but yeah. So these are just some old memories of how we got from here to Ivory Hill, from Ivory Hill to Rocky Mount, and then we built on Rocky Mount to Roanoke Rapids, and we're now wrapping up that portion of ministry of 30 years, now looking to be as Daddy was Moses to me being Joshua. Now I'm looking to do the same thing. Maybe I'm not Joshua. Maybe we put me in the category of someone like an Elijah to hand it off to Elisha. However, we just want to make sure that we have some good substance for the next generation. So, Daddy, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everything.
Bless you.
Hello again, I'm Antoine Brown, pastor of Refreshing Springs. I have the pleasure once again to interview the great one himself, Bishop Shelton Daniels.
Man, it is wonderful to be with you here. We'll be here with you, Bishop. We're in an amazing environment of where I think that it's important for folks to know how it all began. Greater Joy Rocky Mount and Greater Joy Roanoke Rapids is one thing, but to know where I got my teeth cut in pastoring would have been right here in this community, here in Enfield, in Medoc, at Ivory Hill Church. What an amazing experience I've had. To the left of this building is where it all began in 1998, my first time coming here to share with this congregation, a small band of believers that just believe God and love to worship, and so it was from that moment into 2003 when we built this magnificent building that God blessed us tremendously. Blessed us tremendously. I often think about, Bishop, about how God has entrusted me to church planting and being founder and putting people in place, but I've often told, even JR, I've often sat and told him that I think that if I had to write a script as to how things should go for young pastors, I believe that they would be better off going through an existing church where they can have to pastor people that are older than them, that know more than them, that can, that's sometimes where they put the pressure on you to say, that's not how it should be done. And the calling from God and the experiential knowledge, trying to intertwine that stuff together is an experience that I think all young pastors should go through.
All of them should go through that. So here at the Genesis, what do you think when you came in? I saw your face when you walked through the door. I saw you when you poured up on the grounds. It's almost like you took a deep breath of like,
Well, the feeling is I still get chills when I walk in this building. First of all, it is beautiful.
Yes.
But second of all, because God allowed somebody like me to do this. God, see, I think that we sometimes as pastors, for lack of better terminology, get full of who we think we are. And if we step back and look at what God does and know and be very true and realistic with who we really are, we know we're not capable
Yeah. Yeah.
of some of the things that we do. You're aware of that. We're not capable of doing it, but we did it. And the only way we did it was because God can use instruments any way he wants to. And I think that's the most amazing thing about when I come to Ivory Hill is that I realized that I had no experience. I was nobody. I came to somewhere that I wasn't familiar with, and God used me tremendously. Maybe the first Sunday I preached at Ivory Hill, it may have been 75 people. This building holds 900. And to see God move, not that I was so great, but God knew what was needed in infield. He put me here to love people, and this community is rich and vast with a lot of people anyway. And all it needed was someone just to have the mindset to bring community together. And that's what God used me to do.
Wow. Let's take this excursion, if you will.
Okay?
Here we are. Your first time, again, preaching, having to go through protocols to see if you're going to be the pastor. And now you're coming down to the end, if you will. Both of us are sports fans. The end of your Hall of Fame career in the kingdom. How was the transition from having to go before people to see, even though God has already preordained you to be here? How does it feel having to go through that? You spoke about young pastors. How do young pastors deal with having to go through the pulpit committee and the chairman of the deacon board to now you came into somewhere that was already existing and you took it to the next level? Start there, and then we're going to go down the road to greater joy. And how do you leave it? Now you started. How do you leave it? But start where you started.
There's a big contrast between founding and established. First of all, there's a big difference in that. And if I were to say the key to it all is trying to figure out how to love folk rather than you trying to be large and in charge. And being, I think sometimes, Bishop, I think what has to be, I wish I could pour this into young pastors to say, when you come into an environment such as this, where things are already established, you come in not trying to come in and uproot and change stuff. You come in and love people and figure out where they are and figure out, even with your futuristic thinking, how do I get there? And you have to, you don't want to disrupt everything because you want to take the people with you. So you have to just slowly but surely figure out what are the needs and how do we move them to the next place, rather than coming in trying to be the pastor. The old pastors would tell you like this: go in and vacuum the floor. Be a good vacuum. Be a good janitor. Know how to clean the vacuum the floor and clean the bathroom. Then after a while, they might let you go to the pulpit. And because you're dealing with old school.
Yes.
See, old school church was circuit preaching, meaning that a pastor might have 4 churches, which means that one Sunday a month he was preaching in that church. The rest of the month, the people were left up to govern themselves.
Yeah.
Meaning deacons and trustees and executive boards to govern themselves. So for you to come in to be a tyrant all of a sudden, because see, when I came in, Ivory Hill was not every Sunday. Pastor J.J. Copeland, who is still one of the most amazing guys that I can that just can get in my mind how he did what he did for so many years. But he was not here every Sunday. So part of the time they govern. So think about it. If somebody's governing themselves part of the time, and then you come in and you're going to govern them all the time, that becomes a process. It's not something you can just come in and demand, this is what we're going to do. So you have to learn to work with deacons and work with trustees and figure where they are and then say, okay, how about we try it this way? I was successful because I love people. I still love people today. I was successful, and this is my mantra, that I'm going out in blazing guns stating to everybody that no one can tell you that Shelton Daniel treated them bad. No one can tell you I did something to treat them bad. They may not like decisions or things I've done, the way I did it, where I said, but they can't tell you. When you can say that, that means that no matter where people were, I loved them where they were. And so working with deacons where they were, working with trustees where they were, doesn't matter whether people were your level of education or not, or your level of experience or not, just loving them where they were. If we could just train, if you want to know how that process would, pulpit committee, see, I don't have that issue with Greater Joy. I don't have that issue in Greater Joy North. Let me say it this way, symbolically, I'm Moses and I'm going to hand the baton off to Joshua. And whoever that is going to be, I'm going to hand it, and I'm going to be there to kind of guide them. In this environment, it's a selection. It's, you come in, they get a chance to talk to you, meet you, you get a chance to preach, they decide. And those are the challenges of traditional settings. I guess it's tough because I believe that sheep can't find a shepherd. But if that's the process that's been set up, you have to work with that process.
So, Bishop, glad you said that. Processes, structures, foundations. How do we now, as we have a new generation that's coming up, how do we teach processes, strategies, foundations to a generation who's coming in, and if they may not have been brought up that way? Because what I'm seeing now is a lot of churches who have these kind of processes. They're getting preachers and pastors from a whole different kind of thinking, and it's almost like we're trying to merge spontaneous preachers with structure. I think the two go together well because they can learn from each other. How do you mesh this? Because now, as we're taking this journey all the way to greater joy, what are some of the things that you've picked up from this community here in Medoc and Ivory Hill what are some of the golden nuggets that you're taking with you, or that you took with you rather, to greater joy?
You know, one of the major things sticks out, Bishop, is a lot of times people want to be founders because they want to be their own boss. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. But what I want you to grasp, if you're going to have a foundationally sound environment, even if you're the founder, if you look at Greater Joy now, it has trustees, it has deacons, it has ministerial staff, and executive people, because nobody is their own boss that you just you and I are part of churches, the founded churches, but we still are accountable to people.
Accountable to people, yes, sir.
You see, and I think that's one of the misconceptions. So if there's a nugget that I would bring out of there, I'd say that I learned what I'm doing at Greater Joy from Ivory Hill. Consistency in budgeting, setting up of established boards and committees, chairs, and you know, I want in this era we're in, Bishop, a lot of the pastors are living from offering plate to pocket and to mouth, and that's foolish and dangerous. You see, because there's no way you can keep a foundationally established place balanced if you don't have some people that you're accountable to. So today, I have a chief finance officer who says she's not going to say you can't do this. She's going to say, okay, now look, if you do this,
yes, sir.
this is what you're faced with. But so you still have the gates, and you still have the check and balances. So that would be one of the things. And the other thing is, when you ask me about the process of and how do we do this, I think we have to do what you and I are doing. I spent a lot of time talking to you.
Yes, sir.
You were 25, 30 years younger than me, and I spent a lot of time talking to you and JR and some of the other younger pastors just to share what has happened. I think where the gates come up is the old generation want to treat the young generation like they are imbeciles, and with the fact that you don't know anything, and then the young generation wants to act as though they know everything and don't want to listen to wisdom. I think what has to happen is what you and I are doing. We sit down, talk about it from a perspective of youth and vibrancy that you guys bring to the table. And then you always want to know, Bishop, what happened in this era and how did you do this? And I get a chance to share what has happened. Was it all right? No, but it's like what grandmama say, you eat the meat and throw the bone away.
Gotta throw the bone
Right.
away.
So I think that's the issue. Continuous open dialogue, conversation about what happened. Because what I don't want to happen is not only we miss the principles and the foundation, but we lose the traditions.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
We talked about part of that before. This environment is like the environment my dad brought us up in. You know, there are certain things you wore. Dress code was critical.
Don't run and don't go in the pulpit.
No, you don't get up in the pulpit. You don't play in the pulpit.
Yeah,
you wait for the preacher to come down. That kind of environment. Mothers were in one corner and the deacons were in the other corner. Those are traditions. Even though they sound crazy, they have some relevancy because they establish that there is some hierarchy in all things.
And we need that in everything we do. You spoke about eras. And when we started this off with the genesis of your pastoral leadership. As we migrate now, what was the last day like being the pastor of Ivy Hill?
Well, the last day was bittersweet. I remember it was Mother's Day, was my last sermon being preached here in 2009, Mother's Day 2009. The transition had already taken place. I was already pastoring in Rocky Mount. It was bittersweet. There were some tumultuous times. There were some things that maybe we didn't all agree on, but the transition was bittersweet because I loved this place. I knew that the tumultuous times, the disagreement, was only God shaking up the place, because if God hadn't have done that, I would never have left here. So you have to always look at, whenever there is a shaking, whenever there seems to be trouble, it's really God doing what God does. Because you look at this, I had no reason to leave here. So it was all God saying, next section of life, I need you to do this. Inner city ministry, community development, all of this stuff that I needed to do in Rocky Mount. I would not have gotten there without the bittersweet. But the last day was tough for me because I just love this community. I literally adore this community. There is no place in this community I can go that I don't know the folk. I know every corner, every person. I know at that time, every child. They're a bunch, all of them are grown up now, but I knew everybody. So that transition, Bishop, was tough emotionally because I just love these people.
Now, with the structure that you got here, the training, the tutelage, everything that you have absorbed from Ivory Hill, while we're waiting for the day where we see Bishop Daniels' jersey, Hall of Fame, hanging up.
I don't know about that, but I got
It's gonna be hanging up like this. This is one of the greats. How is it that you hope to leave greater joy? Almost the dichotomy between the two of how you came into ministry and this already been established. How do you want to leave greater joy established as you begin to pass the baton to the next runner?
I would hope, Bishop, and I can't say I did, I think I did, but I would hope that I could leave greater joy better than it was when I found it. The community. Greater joy itself was new, but the community. I would hope that Ivory Hill people would say, I left Medoc better than the way I found it. And I worked hard. Bishop, I traveled an hour and a half to get here every day. So it was not like I lived right in the community. I drove here and I worked hard, and I tried to do the things for the people, the community, the same things I do in Rocky Mount, like working with the city government and schools and the children and all of the things that I can get resources and things into community. I did that then, and I hope that I left this place, Ivory Hill, better. When in the next few years, when I'm off the scene of the central pastor or the senior pastor, I hope that I can say, or the people can say, that I left South Rocky Mount better than it was when I went there. That's the key. Legacy is around, what did you do? See, this is not about who you think you are. What did you do? Did you serve people?
That's what we are. You know, we're servants. There's nothing. We're no better than anybody else. We have our own vices. We just happen to be just like God called the person to be the person on the fire department. God called us to be the pastor and the person who's going to be the conduit by which He's going to speak His word. That's what we do.
You said something amazing that stuck out to me. If y'all paid attention to my question, you'll understand that Bishop Daniels answered my question, but not answered my question. And I'm glad he did, because this is what I asked. I said, how do you want to leave greater joy? Bishop Daniels said nothing about greater joy. He said everything about the community in which greater joy is in. That's what I think all pastors should take out of this, because it's not about the church. It's about the community that the church is in.
Yeah.
That's something that we only see, well, I've only seen in the Catholic churches, where they are about the community in which they're in. Because most pastors, especially, this is really good for my generation, because we hang our hat and our legacy on our church, not on the community in which the church is in. And when we got in, you started talking about people.
Yeah.
That's in meetup, how you miss the people, how, you know, we may look at this area as a small place, but there's so many people in the crevices of this place. And I'm trying to say, hey, when I came up, I didn't see, but you start talking to me about the people. And ever since I know you, when it comes to Rocky Mountain, you're not talking about greater joy. You've always been talking about the city and the community in which you're in. So when we talk about the road to greater joy, I think greater joy, man, is what you want to leave the community with.
I know that I know that God has been good to me, but you know the whole success of it of even with church growth. Do you know where church growth really is? It's in people. People reaching people.
Wow.
Because that's how the church grows. It's not advertisement on TVs. And
True. Yeah.
It's not social media. It's people. Here we are in I just completed my 28th year. And let me say this to you. Last week, we knocked on every door around our church. Why? Because I never want it to be said that there's a building sitting in a community and the people don't even know who's at that church. They should know that you the pastor. They should know that the people have came to, even if they don't want to go to your church, they still need to, there should not be people in the community who have not been touched by the church. So we're knocking on doors because we believe, first of all, there's much turnover all the time. But second of all, because we want them to know we thinking about y'all. We want you all to be a part of the church. There were people when we were on Anderson Street who never went to the church Greater Joy on Anderson Street. But they came over and helped us with the food bank. They came over and helped us when we were doing community stuff. They don't want to go to church. We still worked on them. We still ministered to them. But it didn't matter that they didn't come into our worship experience. They came to the church and they did other things.
Wow.
So I think in this generation, not being as concerned about the building, though this building is beautiful, though Greater Joy and Rocky Mount is wonderful, Roanoke Rapids is fantastic. The buildings are great, and I think God's house should be beautiful. But folks are what makes it important. Our motto from day one was each one reach one. We required that if you came to church on Sunday, you brought somebody with you. Because if you don't have any sphere of influence over nobody in 7 of God's working days, something is wrong. You have no sphere of influence. Out of 7 days, 24 hours a day, you have no sphere of influence, something is wrong. Because you're supposed to be able to do that.
Bishop, you are, even in this, I'm learning so much more about you. And you are an amazing person, but also an amazing example of what ministry should look like. You are a people's pastor. And what you have done from here, when I drove up, I was talking to Elder Harris. I was like, man, like, so all of this parking lot, that sanctuary over here, to come over here and see this beautiful church and being at Greater Joy, seeing that beautiful church, I think your personality and your love has transcended time. And like I said before, the kingdom is going to be better because now you're taking your time to impart into others, not about preaching styles,
Right.
but you're talking to younger pastors about people skills.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing. And you have been on this journey a long time. And now I believe that I'm praying for you, that God will allow you to continue to see the fruit of your labor. And God will continue to enlarge Greater Joy, because I know whoever and wherever you choose to do it, they're going to have, let me say it this way. I'm trying to say it with some class and tact. When you give it over, they're going to be handed a jewel that's going to be already established, already properly taken care of. And for somebody within my generation, that means so much when you hand them something that you have taken care of. I tell my kids all the time, if we're going to give away, because I make them give away toys before Christmas, don't give away the broken ones.
Right.
Give away the good stuff.
Right.
Bishop Daniels, from Ivory Hill to Greater Joy, I'm telling you, you are handing over the good stuff.
I just pray, my prayer would be that the people that I hand it over to look out for the people. That's all I want to leave it in good shape, because there have been some great people, from the founders of Greater Joy to the legacy that was left at Ivory Hill to the founders of Roanoke Rapids. God allowed us to do some great things, and our whole thing has been about restoring people and looking out. I just say, Bishop, I pray that 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, that what I hand over, people are still looking out for people. That would be my heart's desire. Paul says, your heart's desire, so that would make that my prayer. My prayer would be that 10, 15 years from now, whoever I put this in the hands of, they'll continue to look out for people.
Wow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Bishop Daniels, listen, he is the example of what kingdom pastorship should be like. God bless you.